All right, let's get right into it. We're breaking down a new airworthiness directive from EASA, and if you operate the Airbus EC-175B, this is something you need to pay close attention to. On August 27, 2025, the agency dropped AD 2025-187, and it tackles a pretty serious safety issue found in the cockpit.
And I want to be crystal clear from the get-go, this isn't a recommendation or a friendly suggestion. The actions we're about to cover are mandatory. They apply to every single EC-175B out there. Full stop.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down for you. We'll start with the directive itself, then dig into the corrosion threat. After that, we'll cover the specific actions for your engineering teams, how this plugs into your SMS, the impact on your business, and finally, we'll hammer home those deadlines.
Okay, let's dive right in. First up, the specifics of this new mandatory safety directive.
So, here are the top-line facts you need. We're talking about EASA AD 2025-0187. The whole thing becomes effective on September 10, 2025. It's all about the cockpit floors on the Airbus EC-175B. And here's the kicker. It applies to all serial numbers. No one is exempt.
So what's the big deal? Why did EASA issue such a sweeping, mandatory action? Let's get into the root cause of the problem.
The language in the directive itself is, well, it's pretty blunt. I'm quoting directly here. It says, this condition could lead to reduced structural integrity of the cockpit floor, resulting in reduced chances of crew to survive in case of an accident. It doesn't get much more serious than that. This is all about crew survivability.
The culprit here has a name, galvanic corrosion. You know, it's basically an electrochemical process. Think of it like a tiny, unwanted battery. When you have two different kinds of metal touching, and you add an electrolyte, which can be as simple as a little bit of moisture, one of those metals starts to corrode. It basically sacrifices itself to the other.
And here's exactly how that's playing out inside the EC-175B cockpit. You've got a stainless steel shim sitting right against the aluminum floor. That's step one. Then, a little bit of moisture gets in there and acts as the catalyst, and boom, the reaction starts. The aluminum floor begins to corrode, getting weaker and weaker until it might not be able to handle the loads it was designed for in a crash.
So, we know the problem. What do you actually have to do about it? Let's talk about what this means for your engineering, maintenance, and camo teams.
All right, pay close attention to the timeline because it's very specific. The clock starts ticking on September 10, 2025. From that date, you have 3 months to get the first inspection done. However, there's a catch. If the floor is less than 36 months old, you can wait until it hits that 36-month mark. The key phrase here is whichever is later, so you really have to check your aircraft's specific records.
The AD points you directly to an Airbus Alert Service Bulletin for the to-do list. First, inspect both the left and right cockpit rails and floors. Second, if you find anything wrong, that helicopter is grounded. Corrective actions must be done before the next flight. And third, from the effective date onward, anytime you reinstall seat rails, you have to use the new procedure in the ASB. No more old way of doing things.
Now, this is more than just a maintenance task. Let's look at how this plugs into your bigger picture safety management framework. This AD introduces a known hazard. That means the risk of cockpit floor corrosion isn't just something to fix, it's something you have to formally manage. It needs to be documented, assessed, and mitigated right within your organization's safety management system.
And EASA is making a broader request here. They're asking operators to be their eyes and ears. If you find similar corrosion on any aircraft, even ones not covered by this AD, report it. That data is absolutely vital for spotting wider trends and hopefully preventing future issues across the industry.
Okay, switching gears a bit. Beyond the engineering and safety stuff, this AD creates real-world ripples for your operations and your budget. You need a plan.
Look at how this touches almost every department. Your safety team is obviously focused on that crew survivability risk. Operations now has to juggle the schedule to find downtime for inspections. Finance needs to budget for the labor and potentially some costly repairs. And for the commercial and leasing folks, it is critical to make sure this AD is covered in all your agreements.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important point. These timelines are not flexible. The clock is officially ticking.
3 months. That is the number you need to remember. Unless that 36-month installation rule gives you a bit more time, you've got a 3-month window from the effective date to get that initial inspection done and dusted.
So, get out your calendars and circle this date in red. September 10th, 2025. That's when this directive is live.
and you should not plan on any extensions.
For all the nitty-gritty details, your two key documents are the AD itself and the Airbus ASB. If you run into technical questions, the directive says to contact Airbus Helicopters. For anything about the regulations, your point of contact is EASA.
So we'll leave you with this one final question. We've walked through the what, the why, and the when. The only thing left to ask you and your team is this: is your compliance plan ready to execute?